Greetings. This is the Steppen Gamer channel, and I am the Steppen Gamer. Like Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf, I play alone. Join me as I play traditional multiplayer games solo. I know people are eager to see the division blocks compared with the brigade blocks, and what does that look like on the map. So here we have Antietam set up at the divisional level. And here's a closer picture of those divisional units. Here you've got the Federals, and here you've got some Confederate troops. And here's the Federal division setup compared to the Confederate brigade setup. Now one thing you'll notice as I set these up is that these little brigade blocks get kind of fiddly to handle. I'm forever knocking them around, which is a reason I prefer the division blocks. But then there's also differences like this. Here's an artillery block that wide. It just shows it's here ready to cross the river. I replace it with two brigade blocks and it easily fits and demonstrates what's there. As long as two players are getting along fine, playing a gentleman's game, that's not a problem. But it does just look better. I cannot deny that. Alright, I'll get this set up and then we'll cut to the chase when I'm done with this. Boom! There you have it. Some brigade on brigade action.
Hello friends. Today we're playing Antietam by Command Post Games. And this is with the Musket Battles system. Today we're playing with the brigade blocks. And what's happening here is, here we have Lee and Jackson and Longstreet and Stewart. We're all having a confab in Sharpsburg. Of course, Jackson wanted to attack. He wanted to bring a hurt to the enemy. But Lee said, the Union outnumbers us. And if you look at the classic combat results table, you'll see that at 1 to 2 odds, there's almost no hope of victory. However, if we remain on the defensive and they attack us, it's at 1 to 1 odds. And that, of course, is in our favor. Therefore, we're going to defend our position. Thus decided, they all rode back to their command areas. Now, for his part, McClellan had quite the idea. Now, he told Sumner here, you attack first thing in the early morning. And then he told Hooker, look, when Sumner's got their attention, you'll be right behind him, and you'll come in and hit him hard. But that's not all. In the early morning, he'll move these artillery to this hill, up onto this hill, his artillery here, up onto this hill. And they're going to shell the Confederates they saw hiding in the sunken road. Mid-morning, they'll fire. And when that bombardment is done, Burnside will sweep on through and clean up the mess. And to make sure there's no Confederate perfidy at the southern bridge of the southern crossings, Porter's 5th Corps here and Manfield's 12th Corps here are going to keep an eye on it, as well as Pleasanton's cavalry. In fact, Pleasanton's horse artillery is going to move up to this hill and begin shelling the Confederate position. What could go wrong? Alright, here we are, turn 1, early morning. Now I want to divulge something that I do when I'm playing solo. Rather than draw the chits one at a time, simply because that's kind of time consuming, I simply dump them out, line them up, and then I simply play them in the order drawn. Now I've got my divider set to 1/3 of an infantry move. Sumner's moving forward. Now he can reach the Confederate lines. Now this is north. This end of the map is north. He wants to be north of these woods. He's going to go right through the clear area here. Now if I'm playing with divisions, that's just 3 blocks and it moves very quickly and easily. With the brigades, they do look cool. It's a little fiddlier. And here we have Sumner's attack. Now on his extreme left, he does have Weber's brigade hitting the woods. He wanted to tie down the Confederate troops on his left flank. In reserve, he has Sedgwick's division. So Hooker moves out, and he can get right here. That's the corner of the road by the Miller farm. And now Hooker's 1st Corps has moved forward. As ordered, the Confederate horse artillery is placed on the hill, and Pleasanton moves the rest of his cavalry over there. Voila. And then the artillery occupies the heights. And of course they need to stay back out of the line of fire of the troops in the sunken road. And now we resolve what happens when Sumner's Corps hits the Confederate left. And when the smoke clears, the Union attack has been thrown back by D.H. Hill's division. And now we move on to turn 2, mid-morning. And turn 2 begins with Hooker's 1st Corps charging the Confederate line. General Jackson is drawn. How is he going to respond to these Union attacks? Well, Stewart's got command of the left wing, and he's decided to defend with vigor, which means he's attacking. He orders Winder's brigade to move around to the center the center has to hold. Longstreet's artillery opens up on the Union artillery that they've seen topping the rise. All is confusion on the Federal batteries here on the left. Over here on the right, Sumner pulls back what's left of Richardson's division and orders Sedgwick's division into the fray. And Jeb Stuart calls for his 2 brigades of cavalry in reserve to reinforce his position. And the Union artillery opens up on the sunken road. And the Union artillery on the hill firing down into the sunken road fires with amazing precision. And with heavy losses, many of the Southern troops have to withdraw. Only Lawton's brigade is left, holding the sunken road. We'll begin with D.H. Hill's counterattack on Sumner's exhausted corps. And we end up with mixed results here on the northern flank of the battle. Here, the outflanked Federal troops were driven back. But in the center, D.H. Hill's exhausted troops couldn't hold against the fresh troops of Sedgwick's division. And here in Jackson's center, we have the cream of Jackson's corps. His 2 brigades under Stark and Winder. Can they hold against Ricketts and Doubleday's charge? And although Hooker's 1st Corps was able to take the position, they're now stuck out like a sore thumb. The only reinforcements they have is Meade's Green Division. Now if we compare casualties, we see that the Federals have lost 6 blocks and the Confederates 2. This is not an exchange the Federals can keep up. Sumner lost French's division and Hooker lost Ricketts' division. And now it's turn 3, late morning. Burnside's corps is huge, and it's his turn to hit the Confederate line. Having successfully blunted the early Union assaults, Jackson is going to fall back while Stuart's cavalry covers his retreat. And again, Longstreet's artillery opens up at extreme range on Union artillery on the hill, also silencing it. The artillery today is just deadly on both sides. Now Jackson, having reformed his line, senses success, and he unpacks his bags. This will allow his line to recover next turn. Sumner unpacks bags right here along the Hagerstown Turnpike, and that rallies Richardson's division. Now Hooker has some troops that can be rallied as well, but he's already been drawn this turn, so they'll have to wait till the next turn. Next, Burnside's brigade surges forward, and they unpack bags so they can rally the artillery, because Longstreet's artillery right here is going to be raking the Union advance, and they don't need that. And Pleasanton directs his horse artillery to continue to harass the Confederate lines, but it seems to have little effect. And the massive Union artillery is rallied, but now Burnside's corps is out in front of them, and they dare not fire. And Franklin's newly arriving 6th Corps comes up the Boonesboro Turnpike, and its lead elements cross the Antietam. And with Jackson pulling back, in the late morning there was no decisive combat, and now it's past midday, turn 4. Now Hooker would like to recover his troops before he launches another attack, but McClellan is having none of it. He says we need to hit the South before they recover themselves. They're falling back, we've got them on the run. Well, let's just see how that works out. Hooker's troops surge forward. Now there's a slight rise here in front of Longstreet's artillery, so this artillery block fires at the only thing it can see, which is the artillery that's just recovered on the hill here. But its fire is ineffective. And this artillery fires at the Union troops as they reach the sunken road. It is also largely ineffective. Not exactly the raking fire they were hoping for. And now Sumner's rallied division charges forward. And now Burnside unleashes his own dogs of war. His troops charging into Sharpsburg become broken up and disorganized as they hit Evans' small brigade. Pleasanton's artillery detects the movement in the woods and opens up. To little effect. And now it's Jackson's turn to move. He can't rally his line because his line is in combat. And a couple of fresh brigades that raced back behind the makeshift line can turn and face the enemy, making an ad hoc second line if the first line fails. Franklin's corps crosses the Antietam, and now we move to combat in the early afternoon. We'll start in Sharpsburg. The southern detachment is lost, but they've done some damage. And then, as is their prerogative, actually the last thing that happened in the chip draw phase was Stuart was drawn, and he pulls the cavalry back. So essentially, they held up Sumner's advance before falling back. Now here north of Sharpsburg, we have elements of Burnside's corps hitting Jackson's line. Trimble's brigade stops the Federals' advance, but it's lost. And then the exhausted remnants of Hooker's corps charge into the line. Of course, the Southern troops aren't much better, but at least they have defense. They don't have to attack. Wow, that was devastating. Both sides took heavy losses. Now, if the Confederates get drawn first and can move first, they can rally their line, and they can probably hold. If Hooker gets his division drawn first, he's exhausted. Everyone's spent. But so is the South. This could be his best chance to attack. As the day grinds on towards mid-afternoon, I for one should be very interested to see what happens. Alright, we mix up our chits. Well, now first drawn is Longstreet, over here, and this is critical because there's a hole in the Confederate line. It's called Sharpsburg, and no one's defending it. Longstreet swings into action. He refuses his left and has McLaws' division just outside of Sharpsburg. The Union artillery takes up new forward positions, and here the Union artillery is protected behind a line of detachments. Skirmishers out front to protect it, and they will fall back when it's time to fire. Jackson rallies his line. With Franklin's corps in position, Burnside pushes in the center, and Sumner presses on the Union right, and Hooker comes charging into the Confederate line, right in the center. And Pleasanton's artillery continues to fire ineffectively. Now we'll start with Burnside's attack on Longstreet's flank. Now Burnside's troops have been broken up moving through Sharpsburg. We'll see what kind of attack they can mount on the other side. Well, Longstreet held, but at what cost? Now we have Burnside's drive north of Sharpsburg. The results are inconclusive, and now Hooker's exhausted troops are hitting the rallied, refreshed, recovered troops under Jackson. Jackson's line holds, and now we move to Sumner's attack. Well, Jackson's still kind of holding back Hooker's corps, but Sumner's riding roughshod over him. And here are the bags he unpacked, maybe a little too aggressively. And you know what else I forgot to bring in during the chit drop, but I'll do it now, and that's A.P. Hill's division comes racing up, and they are going to be most appreciated. They may save the Confederate bacon. We're shaking up the chits, laying them out. Okay, there are turns 6, 7, and 8 left in the day. This is dinner time. Turn 6. Every delay is critical. Stuart again does what he can. He sends his cavalry screen forward. Now McClellan has sent word back to Mansfield. Now is your time. Cross the Antietam and prepare to attack south. Mansfield complies. And now Burnside breaks through and fans out. And Christ contacts the bags. With Burnside in the rear area, all is confusion, and the South begins pulling back. Lee moves to save his army. And that was an exciting battle, a very good game. Thanks for joining me. And let me know what you think about the degrades. Yeah, no, it's not degrades. Now, with this video and the last video, which I'll link in the description, which is a division refight of Antietam, which do you think you'd prefer? Now, I prefer divisions because there's fewer blocks and it's easier. But you can't deny how cool the brigades look. And I'm kind of spoiled by musket battles. I'm used to quick, fast battles. But for people who just like all the detail and all the crunch, the brigades got it in spades. And the numbers are behind you. Now that Command Post Games offers brigade blocks, that's pretty much what sells. And if that's where the joy is, go for it. For me, it's the divisions, especially with the larger battles. I can go either way on Antietam. And the first day at Gettysburg, if I'm just playing a one-day scenario, I like the brigades. But by the second day, I mean, it's a lot with divisions. You more than double the number of blocks? Whew. Not my cup of tea, but it's exactly what a lot of people want. And I'm curious what you all think. All right, thank you for coming along for the ride today.